Right, so who am I? Yeah, I spent 32 years in airfield management, still there, with Manchester Airport Group, Airports Company South Africa, and then the regional city airports group with the wonderful, or should I say not so wonderful, Sir Peter Rigby, ending up as the airfield manager at both Coventry and Blackpool, which are part of that group. I also taught airfield management for ICAO, and that bottom left one is me at Kuala Lumpur doing a course with their airfield managers on the air side. I also did aerodrome operational safety audits for the Airports Council International, who are affiliated with ICAO. And the bottom right one there is me standing in the worst place on earth. That's standing on the main runway at Mauritius, which they sent me to for a fortnight, which was just awful. So, okay. So by 2017, I got quite disillusioned with Sir Peter Rigby and the way that the RCA was running. And as you all know now, with what's going on at Coventry with the Giga factory, you'll understand why. And I decided that I needed to get out and have a stress-free life. And all roads led through to Cornwall and straight to Bodmin, where I became the airfield manager in March 2017. And I've been there ever since. And Bodmin, the basic history, well, we accept everything there. We're quite a nice open airfield. We'll accept microlights, we'll accept beautiful heritage classic aircraft like that lovely Travel Air 400 there. There's a story behind that, but those who know the history of the Pacific Air Transport Airmail, was the company was founded by Mr. Boeing of Seattle, which is where they operated out of. And there is some conjecture that maybe, just maybe, Mr. Boeing himself flew that exact aircraft before he decided to go into aircraft manufacture, which he still does to this day, of course. And then we take helicopters. There's the Royal Helicopter at Bodmin with Princess Royal. And every now and again, we even get asked if we can launch a hot air balloon from there. The highlight of any day at Bodmin when they come in, if they come in, is when we get asked very often, because those who know Cornwall, it's a low-level military flying area, the whole of the county, and we're forever getting low-level militaries, and occasionally they ask if they can come through and do a low-level approach through down our runway, which we always say yes, and it's very nice is when you get to see one of those coming in at 100 foot over the ground, whizzing down our runway. But the point of it all, of course, is not the Cessna 172, it's the background. It's getting the airfield to look like that. So it's nothing other than a giant wildflower meadow. And the airfield, as you can see, is wash with some of the most vibrant colors. It's what's called a traditional hay meadow. And of course, it's how you get there and how we got there. The traditional hay meadow in England has decreased, as you see there, by 97% since the end of the Second World War. And this is all due down to intense farming methods, use of herbicides, pesticides, drainage, and the development of land into housing, because there's lots and lots and lots of townies who are just desperate to have the romantic idyll of living in the country. And the outcome of this is a dramatic decrease in wildflowers in the 20th century. And the result is that now that throughout the whole of England, there are now less than 6,000 acres, or hectares, sorry, left of traditional hay meadows. Aerodromes, unwittingly, are pretty much private property, and public access to them is pretty prohibited. The public just can't come. And that means that there are an awful lot of airfields out there like ours who unknowingly are probably holding on to some of the most important and ecologically valuable land in the country without them actually knowing about it. We had 3 botanical surveys on our airfield, which was by a botanist, the Cornwall recorder, who came past and had a look over the fence and saw an orchid and phoned us up and said, could you come in and do a survey? Which she did. They ended up doing 3 in the end. And we now have a growing list of confirmed 170 different species of wildflowers and wild grasses, which includes 3 species of orchid. And the pictures there on the left-hand side, in the background, they are southern marsh orchids. The one in the foreground is a spotted heath orchid. And the nice one on the right there, that is a greater butterfly orchid, all sitting on the airfield. They did a very rough count, and there are more than 3,000 of them on our airfield. So we're very, very lucky to have them. What you will see on the reason why we've got them, or one of the reasons, is in the photograph, you'll notice the little dots of yellow. The little dots of yellow is rattle. And in the greater butterfly orchid picture, you can see it's surrounded by little dots of white. Those whites are eyebright. And rattle and eyebright are parasitic wildflowers, and they're parasitic on grasses, and they actually keep grasslands down and therefore encourage wildflower growth. So you need a lot of rattle and a lot of eyebright on your airfield to be able to end up with a very nice wildflower meadow. But what it does is the rattle, and what it does, it becomes so important that as a result of it suppressing the grass growth, that everybody's after it. And we were contacted by the Farming and Wildlife Advisory Group. They're a national organisation, they're everywhere. They specialise in assisting farms and big estates in going back to traditional hay meadows. And the reason they're doing that is a lot of the farms want to attract pollinators for their crop growth, mainly organic. But it's something that everybody wants. They're trying to go back to how it was before. So they came and were collecting both the grass seeds, and also we donated to them 2 acres of our field. We donated the grass to them. So they cut that, and that was transported to a very nearby estate, which is connected to Heligan, where they were converting 2 of their fields into hay meadows for the sole purpose of assisting with organic crop growth. But Bodmin, how did we get to the point where we were able to donate that? Well, it was actually entirely by accident, certainly not by design. The airfield came into being in 1975 when it was a farm, and it was converted to an airfield by the then owner. And in the last 40, 50 years, there has been no fertilizers, no pesticides, no herbicides, no chemicals, nothing unnatural spread on our land at all. So basically nature has been able to take over and do what it wants with it. And the outcome of that, as I say, by accident, has been a traditional hay meadow. That's the thing. If you ask the CAA if they liked our airfield, they will probably tell you no, because what they want is what you see on the right there. That's Coventry. They want a sterile green field with grass no longer than 10 inches and nothing else there whatsoever. So if you're thinking of going green, you want to convert your airfield, those of you who currently use the CAA's wildlife management block, CAP 772, which gives you all your information you need on grassland management, the thing to say to you is throw it in the bin. Don't use it, not for grassland management, because that document actively discourages having anything other than a thick sward of grass. As I say, no longer than 10 inches, no shorter than 6. It encourages the use of herbicides and pesticides to assist with the grassland health, and it recommends a grass cutting regime that will kill off anything that's trying to grow there, as they only want a grass policy. So nothing it offers will produce a traditional hay meadow for you. So my suggestion to you is don't use that. But it's not just about the wildflowers as to why we're going green. One of the things that we need to help is pollinators, because the loss of all the traditional hay meadows has affected those badly, as we all know. And 97% of the hay meadows going means that our bee population, amongst one of the populators, has suffered since the Second World War, with 13 species of bee, including 3 of the bumblebee species, disappearing since the Second World War. And at the moment, 35 species of bee are considered as under threat of extinction. And surprising as this is, despite that knowledge, this government has not protected a single species of bee, to my knowledge. And there on our airfield, we have lots of buddleia, which we deliberately let grow wild and let it go where it wants, because they are great bee, the pollinators. On the left there, you see a buff-tailed bumblebee, and on the right, that's a red mason bee. Who come to get a bit of pollen. And the reason, of course, as you all know, is why the pollination is so important, is the fact that although grain crops in the UK are mainly wind pollinated, 85% of all commercial vegetables that are grown and fruits that are grown, both in the orchards and by berry, are pollinated by bees and other pollinators. And without these species doing their job, we are not going to have an awful lot of the fruits and the vegetables that we like today. And of course, a lot of good fruits going to things that we like to drink, so you wouldn't be having a lot of those either. So those who want to go green, the question's always been, well, how do we do it? We don't know what to do. And Ian Bernalek, who's the Cornish botanical recorder, told us that it's very easy. He said that every county or vice county, and a vice county is just a county that's split into regions like north, south, east and west, they will have a botanical recorder who belongs to the Botanical Society of Britain and Ireland. And these recorders are always, he said, but always keen to get into those areas that before were out of bounds or they didn't believe they could get into, in order to survey it and list the species that they find. And you can contact every recorder in the United Kingdom via this link. So if you've got a pen, that web link there, https://bspi.org local botany, will give you the list of counties. And then you just click on the county you're in, find your local recorder and his contact details. If there's a vacancy in that county, he said, don't worry, you go to the top, go to the president or the chairman of the recorders, go to him, and he will tell you who in your county to get hold of, because they would love to come in and see what you've got and then make a recommendation of what you can do next with your field. Alternatively, what you can do is that what happened with us as well is you contact your local university if you've got one. They always have botany or ecology or environmental departments, and ask them if they would like to come down and conduct a botanical or a pollinator survey on the airfield to see what's there. The result of that is that we've got a good relationship going with the University of Exeter's Environment and Sustainability Institute, and they have one of their postgraduate students who conducts regular pollinator surveys on the airfield as part of her, I think she's going for an MSc rather than a PhD. And it's all part of a greater program nationally, which is called the Wildflower Collective Project. If you've got a university or a college that does degrees in botany or any kind of biology, get in touch with them. They will probably love to come down. And as somebody said earlier on, growing a hay meadow, sadly, is not going to be overnight. You're going to have a bit of patience. Because if you transform it at the speed that nature dictates, it means it will take 3 to 5 years to create one from scratch. And it can take them anywhere from 5 to 7 years to convert an existing grassland field into a meadow. And the diversity of the wildflowers will improve over a period of 15 to 20 years. But after a couple of years, you should see results of something if that's what you want to do. And for those people who like the minutiae of detail, the national vegetation classification of a traditional hay meadow is MG5 grassland, which is what we are now formally doing. You've got your airfield. What to do with it? Well, you need to get it out there and tell people what you've got. And the youth of today, the people, because they're the future, they're going to know all about the environment and how we've copped it up for them, and the ways of saving the planet. And so through Pete, mainly Pete White, we invite an awful lot of primary schools down as part of their education on transport mainly, but also it can be used for doing wildlife support and pollinator preservation, anything that will take their fancy. It's a community winner for you. If they come back home waxing lyrical about the airfield and what they saw today, you'll have the parents on side, and some of those parents will turn up at council meetings, and if you've got a NIMBY there having a go at you, the parents are quite likely to stand up and attack the NIMBY. So it's always a winner for the airfield to have them on side. Our last visit was only last week, where we had the South Petherwin Primary School from Devon, Cornwall, they're still in Cornwall, aren't they, on the river, who came across to do a little project with us, and they had an absolute great time. And of course, it's not just schools. You can do it outside of school, which we do as well. We do it with beavers, cubs, and scouts, but the beavers and the cubs especially, they have badges that they can earn as part of their studies. The beavers do you can see the little global badge that they do for their studies, and the cubs do obviously natural history. And there you've got a little pack of beavers who were all awarded their wings, which they're extremely proud of, and they're showing them all off. And again, it's a winner to have these people down. And of course, finally, if you want your airfield to be known and for word to get around to be protected, find out who your local natural history clubs are, who your gardening associations are, because every village has got one, every town, every area has got them. Invite them down to have a look. We've had all these people come down to have a look, and we know it works because we know that at least one of them, of one of those organisations who came down to us. We have a NIMBY, as most airfields do, who's very vociferously against us, and she's just become a councillor, funny enough, and she had a go at the airfield, and one of the people who come to visit us stood up and attacked her for having a go at the airfield. So it actually does work to have people like that on your side. And of course, it's got to go out nationally. Even somebody told me in this month's pilot, Dave Unwin has mentioned us again about what we're doing, and we've already had articles in the Fly magazine, in the pilot magazine last year. And what was really pleasant is it got outside of aviation, and an outside activities magazine also carried an article about Bodmin. And what was really nice to see was whether or not if this message is getting out is really being met, was that this appeared in the Western Morning News, which is a Cornish newspaper, and that was Land's End Airport have got involved as well, and they had invited in one of their local environmental organisations, the Landscape Partnership, because on their airfield they have a flower, the Devil's Bit scabious, which is quite rare, and they were donating as many seeds as this organisation could collect to take and spread around the Lizard Peninsula and around there. So it does work when things get out, and that's where we are today, where it's starting to pay dividends. And so where are we going now? Now that 2022 started, what's coming now? Spring, you know, the spring has sprung, the grass is riz. So we're going to move into the time now when people start getting re-interested in again what we're doing. Well, we've already been contacted by 2 of the local National Trust flagship properties, which we are very, very pleased about. Both of them have said they wish to convert some of their estate land back into traditional hay meadows, and both have said, can they come and collect the native grass off us later in the year? And we're just delighted to do that for them. It's quite an accolade for the National Trust to be coming to us. And those are the 2 properties there, the Lanhydrock Estate, which is, as you can see, absolutely beautiful, and the Coteal Estate, which is equally beautiful down on the river close towards Plymouth. And of course, education continues with the theme as well, insofar as what we did last year with the University of Exeter. They've come back to us again and they say, can they continue to send their research students to us who are undertaking studies, whether it be MSc or PhD on a multitude of disciplines. And again, the university's Environment and Sustainability Institute is continuing with their research. They've got one specially called Behave, which is modelling the development of honeybee colonies and how they're being affected in different landscapes. And they've requested for one of their students to come down and continue with her pollinator research at Bodmin. So we're very, very pleased to help them out. We've told them no problem at all. And beyond that, the Halpin Trust, which is one of these big national trusts that has lots of money, they fund mainly environmental projects, which deliver, as you see there, powerful and lasting impacts in the areas of nature conservation, environment and education. So we're perfect for them. And they are funding what's called the Wildflower Collective Project, which is run by a very nice lady there. You see Dr. Grace Twiston-Davis, who's from the University of Exeter. And the purpose of the project is the creation of flower-rich habitats, which is exactly what we are. And what Grace is doing is Grace is working with us. She's also feeding students in from the University of Exeter. And she's also connecting with landowners and other community programs around Devon and Cornwall, such as the Lost Gardens of Heligan and the Eden Project, about donating hay to them when they need it. But it's not just that, some of it is easy. You can actually go get stuff if you want, and especially this year. For those who don't know, it's the Queen's Platinum Jubilee year this year. And there's an opportunity for airfields to start improving their own sites as part of the Queen's Green Canopy Initiative, which is called, which is going to encourage community groups, of which the majority of airfields are, to plant trees to mark this great occasion. And I'm sure there's a multitude of species you can choose. And you may find you're entitled to claim free saplings to plant on your airfields as part of whatever program you have of improving the environmental footprint of the airfields. You can get details from your local council. We were actually contacted by Bodmin Town Council and asked, would we like a pack of free saplings? To which we said, without doubt, we do. You can also go to the Woodland Trust. The Woodland Trust are doing the same. You can go to them. And in fact, the Queen's Green Canopy itself gives a lot of other avenues you can follow to get free trees for this year's Green Canopy as part of the Jubilee. That's the United Kingdom, so it's growing nicely. And of course, what about outside the United Kingdom? Is it limited to the UK? What we've been doing? Are we working in a bubble? And we're not, apparently. We're not alone. The decline of pollinators is also considered a very, very serious problem within the EU itself. So much so that the EU have set out the European Food Safety Authority, which is one of their agencies, to set up a program to help protect bees and pollinator health within the EU. In Holland, which is all known as a very, very big farming country, they have a strategy that is backed by the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, because they've got a serious problem with pollinators and they're trying to reverse the loss that they've had and increase the pollination services that are provided to agricultural farms, etc. Denmark as well are another one. The FAO is involved with them with their national program. Because they've also noticed severe losses of honeybees and as well as decrease of wild bees. So all over Europe, they've got the same problems we've got in the UK with pollinators and how airfields with hay meadows or traditional wildflower meadows can help them. But what does this mean for general aviation in Europe? Well, this is what I mentioned to Steve earlier. This is what I was tipped to nod at, that thanks to initiatives through Steve and the LAA and talking to his European equivalents and his colleagues over there, they also have shown a very, very big interest in applying eco-airfield initiatives within their own countries. They also recognise what they've got actually may be not the answer, but may assist with reversing the problems that they've got. And the Eurovision, these European aviator friends also recognise, you know, that the crucial habitats and all the rest of it, and they can do something. And I was told, Steve will confirm this later on, that there are equivalents in Denmark, Holland and Belgium who have expressed an interest in applying similar initiatives within their own airfield infrastructure. There's probably more. He mentioned the European organisation that deals with ultralights and all the rest of it, and I did actually read up on them. I forgot to put it in the actual presentation tonight. So, you know, what is the future? What more is there to come? You know, we're great that our friends in Europe are doing what they can, but it's this country that's our focus. We're doing what we can. So as the year comes up, we've got a lot of things in train that we are going to be doing with the people outside to continue with this benefiting the community with our green initiatives. And as Anne knows, and she came down to visit us in the last talk, it's very gratifying to see that in less than a year, us, a local Cornish exercise, you know, we've managed to protect and enhance a vanishing landscape contained within our airfields. But more of the same is starting to happen across the UK, with more airfields taking up that challenge, more looking to start the challenge, and others increasing what they've already got but didn't know it. And finally, as our chairman Darren Fern stated, this really is an opportunity for airfields to finally be recognised as the environmental heroes in this country and not the villains, which is what the NIMBYs always think. And as you see there, Land's End are started, Rougham, we're talking about starting it off, Bodmin are doing it now, and as Anne will tell you, Stowe Marie's has got a programme well in train. And that really ties it up, really. That's the green airfield. Is it still worth it? I think the answer is yes, without a doubt. There are no losers here. You can only win with what's going on with these kind of initiatives. So I hope you've enjoyed the catch-up. Thanks for taking the time for watching, and then hopefully, as I say, some of you out there will go on and take up the torch. Thank you very much.
Well, thank